what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy.
Want to talk a little LSU football here. They are back on the practice field today for spring practice. I want to kind of look at the top 5 most important players during spring ball for LSU because, look, you're losing a lot of production from last year's team. You're bringing in Blake Baker, a new defensive coordinator. Joe Sloan, who had been on the staff, he hadn't been the offensive coordinator. Him and Cortez Hankton are going to kind of tag team it, but Joe Sloan is going to be the play caller. How is all of this going to work out, and which players are going to kind of help pick up the slack for those other players who are moving on? First name on the list, I don't know if you guys are ready for this one. It's super out there. How about Garrett Nussmeier? Obviously, Garrett Nussmeier, starting quarterback. And look, I get it. He's been on the team for a while. And you could say, well, this one's kind of a given. Yeah, but he's working with a new offensive coordinator, a guy he's familiar with in Joe Sloan because Sloan was a QB coach last year. But this is Nussmeier's first spring. This is 4th spring at LSU. This is his first spring going in knowing that he's the guy, that he's the starting quarterback. How does his mindset change? Now, you heard Brian Kelly, every time he meets with the media, he is obviously asked about Garrett Nussmeier, and he said, look, Nuss has been a leader since he's been with this program. Since I've been here, this is going on Brian Kelly's 3rd year, he said Nuss has been a guy who stepped up and been a vocal leader. And that's fine, but now your mindset has to change. Now your preparation has to change. How is that going to work for Garrett Nussmeier? It's one thing being a leader and being vocal and picking up your teammates when you're not the guy every day. Now all eyes are on you. Not only do you have to be a vocal leader, you also have to lead by example. Curious to see how Nussmeier is going to manage that. All accounts coming out of spring right now is he has a really good connection with both Kyron Lacey and Chris Hilton. I think he's going to be just fine. He's a guy that's been in this program for 4 years. This is his 3rd year under Brian Kelly. Similar system that Joe Sloan's going to run, by all accounts, that Mike Denbrock ran. I think Nuss is going to be just fine. Second most important guy I want to talk about, and this is a position that you were paper thin at. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. It's Jacoby and Guillory. Because you didn't recruit well at this position. It's not the coach and staff's fault, right? We talked about this yesterday. You felt really good about your retention. We know this because Brian Kelly said as much during his signing day press conference. He was asked, hey, you kind of lack some talent on the defensive line as far as this recruiting class goes. Interior defensive line. You brought in a lot of pass rushers. And Kelly straight up said, we feel really good about retention at this position. The retention didn't happen. You knew Jordan Jefferson was moving on, but Mekhi Wingo goes to the NFL. Mason Smith shocked everyone. He's going to the NFL. You got a lot of new faces out there. We discussed it a little bit yesterday. All these guys are going to have to be cross-trained a little bit. Is Savion Jones going to play a little bit inside? Is Paris Shand going to play a little bit inside? We're not sure. The one constant is going to be Jacoby and Guillory. He's the only guy on this team that really has SEC starting experience because he has started a few games here with the Tigers. So whoever your secondary piece is on that defensive line as far as defensive tackle, you assume that they're going to be with Jacoby and Guillory. Could it be Jalen Lee? He's a transfer. He's been in college a while, hadn't played a ton of games. Dominic McKinley will come in the fall. He's not even here in the spring as a true freshman. He doesn't have a ton of experience. Whether it's Jones or Shand or whoever moving them inside, cross-train them a little bit, they don't have a ton of experience in defensive tackle. Jacoby and Guillory is going to have to be the leader of that group because he does have that experience. He has to be the leader, and this is such a vital group that needs to play well in order for this LSU defense to have success. So I think Jacoby and Guillory is incredibly important for LSU during spring practice, not just a performance standpoint, which I think he'll do fine in, but a leadership standpoint. The next player I want to highlight is center DJ Chester. Your offensive line outside of Charles Turner is back. I mean, from left to right, you're probably game one going to see Will Campbell, Garrett Dellinger. At the other guard, it's going to be Miles Frazier and then Emory Jones at right tackle. DJ Chester's your only new piece because Charles Turner has moved on. He's a true sophomore. He played a lot last year as a freshman, and they're really high on this guy. If you remember in the Missouri game, Charles Turner went down with an injury. They put in Marlon Martinez. Martinez had the high snap. They immediately went to DJ Chester. He went in there. He was a calming presence. He played well. He looked like he belonged in that game against Missouri. The moment was not too big for him, and That was a top 25 matchup in the SEC on the road. He showed a lot of poise there. Chester's important. He's going to make all the calls on this offensive line, and he's got to have chemistry with his quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. Everything goes as DJ Chester goes. He's kind of the one question mark on this offensive line because, again, 4 of your 5 starters from that really good offensive line a year ago are returning. Both tackles, both guards. Chester, he's the one that everyone's going to be watching all spring, all fall practice, and come game 1 against USC. I think he's going to do fine. You heard an interview with him the other day. Everyone on the coaching staff talks about how football smart this guy is. He's super intelligent. He's able to make all the calls. It should be an easy transition for him. I'm excited to watch him, but we still have to see it nonetheless. I think he's going to be fine, but it is something that we are going to have to keep an eye out on. Player number 4 is Major Burns for me. Now, I know that may seem like a weird one to a lot of you because Major Burns has been on the team for a while. He's been at LSU like 25 years, but he's playing a new position. I thought that was the biggest takeaway from Brian Kelly's recent press conference. He was talking about Major Burns playing that star position, which is a glorified nickel in Blake Baker's defense. I think Major Burns fits that position like a glove. He's tall, he's fast, he can jam you at the line of scrimmage because he has the size to do so. Burns' biggest issue is that he hasn't been creating coverage in the back end. If you put him at the star position, he doesn't have to do that. He's a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. He can cover that tight end. He can cover the slot receivers on those short pass routes. I really like him in this position. Plus, he can be another veteran presence out there on your defense like he has been, but in a new role. Also, if you put Burns at the star position, you can move Sage Ryan out of there. Ryan's a guy that's kind of struggled to find a spot, right? He came in as a 5-star safety. He hasn't really played a lot of true safety. He starts at nickel for a couple years. Last year, you had to put him at corner out of necessity. Then you put him back at nickel. If you could put him back at safety, which is probably his natural position, maybe we can get the Sage Ryan that we all thought we were going to get. Because we've seen flashes of Sage Ryan. It's just been inconsistent. But how much is that his fault? It's a lot like Jacoby Stevens when he came in, right? He was a 5-star safety, but he had the body to be able to play multiple positions. You put him at linebacker. You moved him to receiver for a season or about half a season. Then you moved him back to safety, and he was an integral part of that 2019 LSU defense. Him and Grant Delpit in the back end. The same thing could be said for Sage Ryan. Maybe that's what he needs. A change of position to put him back at his true spot at safety. Moving Major Burns to that star position could help with that. Now, Sage Ryan could still train there as well because he's played that spot. He could be a backup to Major Burns if you need. Also, what it does is it opens up a spot for Ryan Yates, who I thought played really well last year as a freshman. He's a guy that hadn't had a lot of talk in the spring so far. People are kind of forgetting about him. He's under the radar, but Ryan Yates came in as a true freshman last year, a lot like DJ Chester, in SEC games, in high moments, and he made plays for this team. He's a guy to keep an eye on as well. You have a ton of talent coming in at safety as well. The LSU staff loves Jordan Gilbert, the A&M transfer. I mean, he played ball right down the road at U-High. He is back here at LSU. He's a guy that has multiple years of college experience. So you have options at safety outside of Major Burns, and I think this spot fits Major Burns a lot better. He's a guy I'm going to be watching. Last player I want to highlight is Caleb Williams. And the reason is pretty obvious, right? You're super thin at running back. You have 2 scholarship running backs in the spring, and Josh Williams is limited in what he's going to be able to do because he is dealing with a nagging injury. Plus, you know what Williams is going to do. Williams has been here for 5 years. You know what you're going to get at him. A super consistent player. He can run between the tackles. He can catch out the backfield. And he's a great pass blocker. He can do everything you need. You saw the flashes of Caleb Williams. Can he become that complete back? Can he have better hands out of the backfield? He had a few drops early on in his freshman year. Can he become a better pass blocker? That's kind of the biggest adjustment that running backs have to make at the next level from high school to college. You always hear it. How good can they be at picking up blitzes? If Caleb Williams can become a better pass catcher and be better in pass blocking, he could be the best back on your entire team. I mean, we saw how electric this guy is with the ball in his hands. I mean, he made highlight play after highlight play. Even if he's not your RB1, even if they do want to go with Josh Williams, you still need that 1-2 punch. And if one of them has to come off the field, you know that Williams can do everything that Josh Williams can do. Because with Caleb Jackson, the talent's there, the size is there, right? With Williams and Jackson, if Caleb Jackson steps up like we think he can, gets into his full potential, I think you could have one of the better 1-2 punches in the SEC. Now, you're not going to have the numbers you had last year. I think going into the season, you had almost 8 scholarship running backs. You're not going to have that. We don't know the status of Trey Holly. That's going to play itself out over time. You do have Caden Durham coming in, but he's not going to be here till the fall. I do expect him to get some carries early in the season because you lack numbers. But Caleb Jackson's going to be a big piece of this offense. And if he can take that next step, that could really help you, right? Because you're losing a lot of your rushing with Jaden Daniels leaving. You lose Jaden Daniels. You lose Noah Kane as well. He was really good in the short yardage. The only rushing you really return is Josh Williams. Caleb Jackson could be that secondary piece to help alleviate and kind of pick up some of that rushing that you lose with a guy like Jaden Daniels.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.